My name is Sam Young, and I am going to be walking you through a fun little journey today where we talk about 10 tips. I love alliteration. 10 tips from a 10-year 2E teacher, talking through how we can support our twice exceptional learners and so forth. But before we get to that stuff, let's get to some other stuff. I have a question for you. As you see on the screen, hopefully, I want to do a little pause and reflect. So take a moment. I'd like you don't have to physically write this, whether that be type or what, but I want you to think about it for a second. I said, I want you to pause and reflect for a moment and think, number one, what's your strength or superpower? I want you to think about your strength and superpower, and I want you to write it down. And most importantly, again, you don't have to actually write, but I want you to think about it and think about how it makes you feel. What's the way in which you offer value, you show up for people when you're in a team meeting or helping others? What's the thing that you do that supports, that inspires? Take a moment and just do number one. And again, you don't have to write. It's more getting in the headspace. So for me, this is teaching and mentoring. I just get people. I can't stop thinking about them, and I like to help people get unstuck. That's always been my thing since kindergarten. I've just loved to help people. And so that's my superpower. It's helping people help themselves. Does anyone want to share yours quickly? You can write it in the chat or just holler, call out. You don't have to. The important part is that you think about it and that you kind of check in how it feels. Okay. Then if you want to pour those in, I think that's great. Someone said mine's the same. Thank you for that. Number two, I want you to kind of go to the other end of the coin here, the other end of the spectrum. What's the biggest struggle area? What's the place where, goodness, it's a Sisyphusian feat. You push the rock up and it comes back and crushes you. The thing that's just so difficult, all the time difficult. What's that area? What's the struggle area for you? Okay, for me, this is like logistic anything. Give me a spreadsheet. I'm in the seventh circle of hell. I mean, it's bad. It's really bad. No one should ever give me a spreadsheet, please, for the love of God. So think for a moment, what's the place where you struggle? Kind of, how difficult is it being in that space? Envision it. What's it like day to day? How does it show up for you? Think for a second. If you can, again, you don't have to write. I just like to give you a chance to, if you like. And I want you to think about the difference in how you felt. Okay. When you did the first one, did anyone feel kind of a little buzz? Did you feel the warm and fuzzies? Did you feel maybe your posture changed? Maybe your shoulders tucked back and your chest went out and you felt good. Yeah, I help people. I mentor people. And what about the second one? When you were asked to think about where you struggle? I slouched. Oh, spreadsheets. Oh my goodness. Everyone's doomed. It's not good. I'm stupid, right? The self-talk tracks come in, and there's a big difference. And the point of this is, the reason we're starting is that the kicker is a lot of times schools and society are steeping students in the latter, not the former. A lot of the times we're trying to help bring kids up from the bottom and develop their deficits rather than support their strengths. And today we're going to be looking at how we can do more of the former. How can we leverage our own strengths, and how can we help our different students develop their different strengths? So if you're with me, let's get to the good stuff. All right, so here's a little roadmap of what we're going to cover. We're going to first talk about who are our 2E students. What does it mean to be twice exceptional? Who are they? And number two, journey through the 10 tips, which we're going to put in these kind of three containers: mindset, productivity, and creating this can't help but learn safe space. Okay, so we're going to kind of go on this journey through these different areas. And if you stick around till the end, I have an invitation for you. In a week, I'm going to be hosting an amazing event at our virtual village, and it's free, and I'd like for you to come. Also, side note, a really cool thing about that is that there's going to be 2 additional invitations when you come to that. We're going to be having Debbie Reber and Seth Perler come and speak to our families. And I'd love to invite all of you for being here today to join that. And that's all totally free and there for you. So pretty cool stuff. Okay, but that's not why you're here. So let's get to why you're here. So number one, I want to get to who are our twice exceptional learners. And, I kind of start with this visual of people who we might identify as twice exceptional. Someone like a Greta Thunberg or a Simone Biles or a Richard Branson, who's got clear strengths and powers, and also areas in which they struggle, whether it be dyslexia, autism, ADHD, etc. These are all people that we sort of internationally recognize as successful in certain domains who also have differences that have been struggles for them. And while there's no perfect definition for 2E, of course, no one agrees. Wouldn't be fun if we did. This is one of the best ones, and it comes from my former mentor, Dr. Susan Baum, who introduced me to Confortude. Thank you, Dr. Sue. She said twice exceptional means individuals who evidence exceptional ability and disability, which can result in a unique set of circumstances. Their exceptional ability can dominate their disability can dominate their ability, or they can mutually cover one another. And we're going to get more into that in a little bit. The idea, if you think about the sort of exceptionality, so again, when we talk about like giftedness in these higher areas, gifted abilities, as Dr. Renzulli talks about, can be like high verbal, creative, schoolhouse gifted, but also physical, right? Athletic, like you saw in the other image with Simone Biles. So think multiple intelligences, ways in which people are exceptionally stronger, and then areas in which they're exceptionally maybe struggling. And I'm super visual, so I made this little, forgive me, I'm not an artist, it's an every other generation thing. This is a student that I kind of put straddling the bell curve, right? They have a foot firmly planted on each end, 2 standard deviations up, or 3, and 2 standard deviations down, right? And the idea is that they're simultaneously both. And again, taking this visual, and by the way, let me know if you need me to like slow down or explain things in the chat. The logo behind Young Scholars Academy, so I run a virtual enrichment village. I taught at Bridges Academy for about 10 years. And then when the pandemic happened, I started a virtual version of what Bridges was doing, but just for electives and enrichment. That aside, really cool story. I asked a graphic design friend of mine to make a logo, and I described what we're doing, and he made this logo. Super cool, but it's way more incredible than that. If you've read Dr. Susan Baum's original book, To Be Gifted and Learning Disabled, before there was even a term 2E, she wrote this book, To Be Gifted and Learning Disabled. And in the book, she talks about, and you might recognize the colors here, she talks about the yellow, the blue, and the green. So I just mentioned this to my friend, but that was it. The yellow for our students is their gifted areas, their edges, the things that protrude out. These are their strengths, their gifts, etc. The blue is their learning differences. This is the areas in which they struggle. And the green is the whole child. Okay. So when we talk about twice exceptional, I want to make this crystal clear with you. So if you have a little earwax or you're sleepy because it's 5 a.m. in Australia, shout out to all you international folk, by the way. I want to make sure this is crystal clear. Yeah, Angela. This is, our students are always green. Okay, they are not gifted sometimes. They are not learning different other times. They are green. They may appear strong in certain settings, and they may appear to struggle in other settings, but they are always both. And another reason that I like this visual a great deal, which of course it's become our logo, but one of my favorite sayings, and you've heard it ad nauseum, I certainly didn't invent it, but the square peg in the round hole, right? The square edges in the round hole, you can see it, right? The round hole is the learning differences. The square edges are what stick out and what make our students great. And I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm already getting goosebumps, you guys. I get emotional, get the Kleenex ready. Sometimes we focus on knocking their edges off because we want them to be successful, kind of go with the way things are, carry on, chin up, press forward. The Japanese proverb that, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. That's unfortunate because society wants nails that stick out. We want square edges. So it's important to keep that in our minds. And when we're talking about all of this, when we're talking about our students' edges, we need to, that's kind of masking, COVID jokes, too soon for those. We need to be thinking about masking and identifying our students, right? So when we go back to understanding our students, we need to remember these 3 kinds of masking, right? We can have masking the gift where the learning difference is so loud, right? This is the kid that you would call smart but lazy. They're so bright, but they're not turning in their work, right? It's probably more complex than that. They're not smart but lazy. Maybe it's the way in which we're asking them to produce. Could be the problem. Maybe they're incredibly gifted and dyslexic, right? Get them to write and read, not going to happen, but they're listening to audiobooks and YouTube. There's also masking the difficulty. This is the student who's really highly verbal, perhaps, dominating the conversations. You can't tell that they have other things going on. And then we have what's one of the most complex is dual masking, when we can't quite identify either, right? We have the gift is so loud and the learning difference can be so loud, and they actually are both yelling into the dark and we can't really make out either. And that can be really challenging. So, again, high verbal, low producers, right? These are the ones I'm talking about. And it's really important that we kind of understand who these students are. So hopefully we feel like we have a pretty good, give me a thumbs up if you guys are doing okay, and we can move on to kind of the meat and potatoes now. I wanted to just have a basic understanding again of our twice exceptional learners. Thank you. Thank you. Also welcome thumbs up in the chat if you guys don't want to have cameras on, or if you want to do it in the reactions. Let's go into who our setups are for our strengths. Okay. So as I mentioned, there's going to be kind of 3 buckets. We're going to look at our mindset. Thanks, Wilson. I don't know if I'm saying your name right. Hopefully I am. We're going to look at our mindset first, and then we're going to get into the productivity and the other stuff. Okay, so let's start with positive psychology, because that's really the foundation for my life's work, and I think it ought to be for many people. Is that, this famous Lao Tzu quote: watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character, and your character becomes your destiny. Right? It's so important that we are focusing on helping our students feel good. Okay, we live in a deficit-based world. It's always trying to fix, trying to bring the bottom up. Education is right. So-and-so's lagging, let's get them an executive function person, or let's get them a therapist, or let's get them a tutor. And those things are all really important. We need therapy. We need executive function specialists. We need tutors. But if we're focused often on bringing up the bottom, it does not necessarily help our students feel good and grow, self-actualize. We'll be getting into that way more. Fundamentally, human beings are dopamine chasers, okay? I have ADHD. I have always loved the feel-goods. That's what I do. I pursue a dopamine. I have done tremendous things that were really difficult, and I have struggled to do things that are quote-unquote really easy. Why? Because I'm interested or passionate or strong in certain areas. And so it's really important that we understand that a lot of us are pursuing these neurotransmitters, and that we should actually lean into that more. We should let go. I'm asking you today, let go of this deficit-based world. We don't need to converge to the mean. We want to go out to the fringes. Okay? I'm going to get into this a little bit later, but we celebrate people who are experts at small things. Yet school wants people to be good at everything. And there's a disconnection there. Okay. So a lot of our kids are constantly kind of pursuing this buzz. Let's encourage that. That is where a good life will come from. We have to always be careful, right? There is, tech addiction, gaming issues, and a lot that can come with that. We want to monitor it, but we need to also, really set them up to pursue their passions, because that's lifelong learning. And this really leads me to my next point, which is this idea of strengths. If anyone's met Dr. Rick Olenchok, he was a former professor of mine, also a Confortute person from back in the day, I believe. And Dr. Rick, I interviewed him once, and he said, creative writers don't thrive at the DMV, right? And so why are we trying to have everyone do the same thing? Not everyone needs to be good at filing papers and doing certain things. So we want to kind of start where our students are, right? Can we help our students develop the things that they're good at? Again, not converging to the middle, not pushing to the middle, pushing to the fringes. Where are they doing things that are so interesting, that are going to move the needle, that are going to change society, right? How can we help them do some reflection? And one of the things, I want to give you actionable tips today, not just theory. If you're a teacher and you're looking for ways to help your kids reflect more, create opportunities for them to journal. Maybe we have a daily opportunity to journal, right? Can we help our differently wired students reflect? And journaling doesn't have to be typing, doesn't have to be writing. It can be audio recording, but some element of reflection, meditating, etc. How can I make an idea clearer of what it is that lights me up? That's all we're talking about. What it is that feels good, what it is that gets me out of bed, and what it is that keeps me up late at night. As Piaget said, the famous French psychologist a century ago, the principal goal of education is to create men and women who are capable of doing new things, not simply repeating what other generations have done. So when I talk about this fear of converging to the mean, we're just kind of carrying on the status quo rather than asking big questions and doing different things, right? And this is key. We must not focus on what is not being done, okay? We don't want to be a product of the system that kind of makes more mediocrity. Right? I'm American. I live in the United States. One of the things that made the United States pretty exceptional, I think, in the 20th century was times in which we leaned into things like creativity, right? When we started supporting suddenly during the Cold War, gifted education, right? Unique problem solving. All of a sudden, we had an advantage as a country over different competitors, not because we were all doing the same thing, but because we were fostering divergent thinking, creative thinking. I love to think of this example. So people, if you're daydreaming, come back to me for a moment. Think of George Lucas in math class. I say this all the time. All right. Picture George Lucas in math class. At some point, some teacher's like, George, put away your doodles and pay attention. Okay. His strengths are maybe math. I don't know. But it was creating a universe, right? A galaxy that we've all become familiar with. And if we had crushed those edges and converged him to the mean, we would not have Star Wars. We would not have all the fandom that comes with that. And we wouldn't have all the other amazingness that's come as a result. And so I think it's so important, so obvious, right? When we say something like that, like, hey, why don't we just make sure that we're developing people's strengths and talents and interests? Maybe that's a helpful message for you today. I'm going to skip this video and move on to number 3. So tip number 3 of our 10 tips is, how can we let go? Now, there's 2 elements to this. And I go fast, by the way. I got a busy brain and I'm pretty excited and a little nervous. So I move fast. If you need me to slow down, just holler. Pretty pleased with sugar on top. I will do my best to recap anything that I maybe go too quickly over, but we've got a little activity coming up in just a second. So when I say let go, we have to let go of 2 things. Number 1, we need to let go of what we think education looks like. And number 2, we need to let go of how things get done. It's important. Let's look at number 1. If you've seen the famous TED Talk, which I hope you have, Dr. Sir Ken Robinson, talking about how schools kill creativity. He makes a funny joke, and it's always stuck with me. He says, everyone's had an education, therefore we all have an opinion about one, right? And when you're a teacher, you go to a party and you say, I'm a teacher, and everybody tells you how to do your job or what they think about education at large, right? I just say thank you. But what's really important is that we understand that about ourselves. We're doing that too at the cocktail party. We're holding on to the way in which things went, because humans are positive psychologists, right? We forget the difficulties and we kind of massage the narrative so it seems like it was a great experience. A lot of the times we forget about the difficulties and we hold on to this kind of thing that we just keep spinning. We're on this hamster wheel. It's important that we let go a bit of what education needs to look like. And as I like to think, especially again for writers and creative folk, we teach this in our storytelling classes at Young Scholars Academy. You know, we're not the heroes of the story. We're the mentor. We're the Gandalf. We're the Yoda, right? We're not Harry Potter, Luke Skywalker, etc. We are not there to shape the way things are done. We're the person that helps the hero cross the threshold. That's what we do. And we have to let go of how they do it. And we have to let go of the way in which it ought to be done. Okay. So I think that's really important. We need to let go for our heroes. Okay. You may have had an education that went one way. That's great. I'm going to share a quick story with you. I taught at Bridges Academy for about 10 years, which is really kind of like the flagship school for 2E kids. And I was a really good teacher. But when I taught what I was hired to teach, which was US history, I never really got accolades. I was good and people said it, but it wasn't like I was great. When I started teaching electives, I started a metal shop and a debate program and a senior course helping seniors get ready for life after high school. I was always getting praise and I couldn't figure out, it drove me nuts. And I realized I never took any of the classes I was teaching. So I took history and I knew how history ought to be taught. This is an important takeaway. I taught like I was taught. I wasn't flexible. But when I taught the stuff that I hadn't taken, I was good. I was really good because I let go of how it came to pass and I created an incredible learning environment. And I think that's what I want everyone to do. I want you to let go of how education has to be and how things come to pass so that when you do something, you're doing it with the child in mind and their self-actualization, not the way in which it was done for you, right? I think that's more important. So just want to share that with you. Okay. Someone said, how would you apply this with math class? where there's a set curriculum. I get in trouble for this answer. Okay. My answer is close the door and do what's right. You can't always do that. I understand. I taught in public school for some time. But what I think is, my answer to this is as follows. What do you remember from your education? What do you remember 20, 30, 40 years later? It's probably the things that you owned, the things that were authentic, the things that were really important. So if there are certain preset parameters that you need to hit, we need to teach multiplication tables and so on and so forth. What we do is, okay, how can I get them that learning that's going to be on standardized tests that are, is going to maybe have consequences and so forth? How can I get that learning across, but do it in an authentic way? If it's boil it down, what do we need to be teaching? Okay, cool. Now, what are ways in which we can let go of how it gets taught? Aha, that's the question. Can you make them do something that they care about? You want to teach multiplication? The kids are interested in entrepreneurship. Is there a way in which they can make financial projections where they look at how many products or services need to be sold to do X, Y, Z? That's way cooler. And they're going to learn the concepts, probably retain it longer, right? Encode it better into that long-term memory. So ask what we have to do and then let go of how we do it and allow for more choice is my answer. I know not everyone likes that answer when I say close your door and teach because it gets people in trouble. By the way, I'm not working in schools anymore. I run one. So I wasn't always the best at following rules. Full disclosure, take that with a grain of salt. Okay, so next part of this is the letting go of the how, which is just what I was getting at right with that answer, right? It's this idea, there's a couple key elements. One, we need to be a differentiation yogi, okay? Allow access. Different kinds of learning can happen differently. And understand the key elements, right? How can we think about the way in which information is being differentiated? What's often called CPPE. I had a slide for this, but I accidentally deleted it and didn't realize that until like a minute before, so sorry. CPPE, your content, your process, product, and then the environment. How can you think about those CPPE, content, process, product, environment? I'll give you a second if you're interested in writing that down. You probably maybe already know that, I don't know. Then it becomes less of we need to all do this test or this project and we need to all do this thing, right? And it's more of, okay, can we let go of we need to learn this idea? Maybe we do it differently. Instead of everybody writes this essay, you do a tic-tac-toe project on women in World War I. And now you don't have to write the essay. You can do you have to do a podcast, or you can create a character or research women's fashion or rationing. Now it's way more relevant. They're going to learn it way more deeply. They're going to remember it way longer. And they're going to do it in a way that feels good. Ask me to write. It's horrible. Let me get in front of people and talk. I love to do this. I'm excited. I'm loving this right now. So let me do a podcast or a video or something. And by the way, it might be authentic and reach other people. So it's not just an essay in a class, but maybe I've started a YouTube channel, which was on my bucket list. Thank you, teacher. So how can we let things happen differently, right? Our multiple intelligences. Shout out to Howard Gardner. And how can we differentiate the yogi? And how can we find the sweet spot? How can we find the place where we are doing this? This is my strength as a teacher. Gently push, inspire from the front, but also be along the side, right? Dr. Baum always said to me, the goal is not to be a sage on the stage, but a guide on the side. Be a sage on the stage, no, a guide on the side. Can we help our students find that spot between where it's too easy and way too hard and help them shift into independence? The zone of proximal development. From I'm holding you to you're riding the bicycle with training wheels to now you're riding the bicycle when you want, right? So how can we help make that transition? And that's letting go of how things come to pass. Okay, so differentiation is the key. And there are several elements of how we differentiate. All right. I've got one more, then we're going to take a little pause. Hope we're doing all right. I should probably look at how much time I have. I can't remember if I have an hour or 50 minutes. Okay, number 4. Love polarizing a room by talking about grading. Look, it punishes different thinking, right? And I didn't understand this until I left school and started a business. And I realized I did this thing where I took a year and I interviewed 10 mentors of people in my life who were really successful, incredibly successful entrepreneurs. And I asked them, what's the key element, key differentiator that made you so successful? And there were two buckets. Do you want to know what they are? Let me know in the chat if you want to know what they are. If not, I'll keep moving on. But there were two key buckets that came from these 10 interviews. And those really gave me a lot of insight about how education needs to change. I'm going to move along because I didn't get any love in the chat for that. So I appreciate you letting me gauge the room. But it's important. Oh, some people want to know. Okay. The two buckets were this. One, high tolerance for risk taking. Grading punishes risks, right? Grading punishes risks. High tolerance for risk taking. We learn the most when we mess up. So I asked 10 really successful entrepreneurs, one of them a billionaire, several of them 100 millionaires, and everywhere in between. They said, my uncle actually is one of them, is a quote, nothing ventured, nothing gained. That's his life motto, NVNG, nothing ventured, nothing gained. The higher that you can risk, the higher the payout, right? So how can we teach our students to put themselves out there and be confident and so forth? Number two was thinking differently and spotting unique problems. A big trend that came up is people that were really successful. My other uncle, I asked him how he became so successful. In the 1970s, he got a computer degree and started consulting and was a developer of the ARPANET. He sold a record company so that he could go to computer school in the 70s. And I said, how did you know to do this? And he said, it's simple. I was born in 1947. I'm on the front of the baby boomer wave. I knew if I had an idea, 60 million people behind me would think it was a decent one if it made sense. So I scanned the horizon, I'd find a problem, and then I would solve it with as many different solutions as I could come up with, and I'd back the best one. Grading doesn't necessarily support big risks or different thinking. So what are we looking for as a society, right? Dr. Renzulli said, the purpose of gifted education is to increase society's reservoir of persons who will help solve the problems of contemporary civilization. By becoming producers of knowledge and art rather than consumers of existing information. As a business owner, I don't hire people that have incredible grades necessarily. Do you want to know why? Because they're really good at following directions. I hire people who think for themselves and who can own things and are willing to take risks and make mistakes. If you have an incredible transcript and a 4.0 from Stanford, that's fantastic. And you probably have an incredible IQ. But what I'm most interested in is someone who can come up with really unique problems that I didn't see and come up with even better solutions than I could ever think of. So how are we doing that in the classroom? Probably getting rid of grading to some extent. Let's practice this for a second. Fun activity. Here we go. I would like you to take a moment, if you want to write down on paper or keep track with your fingies, type in a document. I'm going to set a 2-minute timer. I'd like you to come up with as many uses for a brick as possible. And then when I say go, I want you to write in the chat how many uses you came up for. A little healthy competition. Doesn't matter how many you come up with. You could have one and it could be the best idea ever. Or you could have 30 and they could be so-so ideas. I don't care. I just want to see what you can come up with. So come up with as many uses for a brick as you can. Okay. I'll give you a couple examples to get you thinking. Maybe a paper holder or a vase or a pen holder. I don't know. Up to you. Keep thinking. Okay, 1 minute left. Okay, 30 seconds. All righty. That's time, my friends. What do we got? Go ahead. Let me know your numbers in the chat, or if anyone wants to unmute and say it, you're welcome to do that. Again, it's not a competition. I just want to see what you came up with. If you got 1 or 33, I'm impressed. I just want you to use your noodle. 6, that's great. Nice. 12. I mean, you heard me come up with 3 and I was struggling. Those were some tough ones. And I made this prompt. 12, 7, 9. This is great. Awesome, you guys. I once had someone come up with 32. I was like, show me those after the talk. I want to see if we're on the same page about how we're counting here. Excellent. 5, 7, 6. This is fantastic. Kudos. Let me ask you this. Genuinely want your opinion. Don't be sad. 4 is great. Do you know how many people use bricks for more than one purpose? Probably not many. Okay. So if you came up with 2, you're winning. If you came up with 4, you've doubled 2. Don't be sad. You're doing a great job. Folks, what's more important, do you think? Genuine question. Understanding how many uses you can come up with for bricks, or knowing what year the brick was made and who invented it? I genuinely want to know. You can unmute and let me know. You can write in the chat. What do you think? Is it more important? This might be a false dichotomy, but that makes for a good debate. We'll talk about that. Is it more important to know who made the brick and in what year, or to expand your mind and come up with as many different prompts, as many different uses, as possible? What do you think? Expand. That's a loaded question. I didn't mean to say expand. Sorry. But yes, expand, right? Again, going back to my example, if I am hiring someone, I'm not interested in the year in which the brick was created or who created it. That's curious. I can look it up. Fantastic. But I want someone who can come up with as many different, 22. Someone said, okay, that's great. If we can come up with as many uses for something, we can think differently. And that is a major value add, right? We, as a society, we're interested in people who think differently, right? We talk about, Steve Jobs ad nauseum and all these people who are doing things differently. That's so important. And making sure that we are in a different era. Like we are like in the AI era, right? We're entering into an era in which I think that knowing facts and figures doesn't quite matter as much, but schooling hasn't really caught up with that. Right. So let us create more opportunities to do more divergent thinking, to expand the way in which we're stretching our students and using our noodles differently, because we're in an era where we can just look things up. Okay. And I want to share something with you quickly, just a quick thought. I'm going to stop the screen share for a second and break the fourth wall here. If anyone's read the famous Dale Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, he makes the statement that the carrot is always greater than the stick. And I would argue that grades are sticks. Okay. Now there's room for grades. I'm not saying that grading is inherently bad. It can be good. I think it's, especially if it's strength-based, providing feedback is helpful. Gamification is great. And I think that good educators really get kids and want to help kids grow. And the key is, can we quantify and qualify the data that we give them towards their interests, not just objectively, right? And I know these are macro suggestions. You may work in a public school and not be able to make these kinds of decisions, but can you make an internal decision in your kingdom as the king or the queen? Can you close your door and decide what you're going to put into your grade books based on the things that truly matter to the students, that truly matter towards the higher level objectives, and let go of kind of the busy grading? Right? Why are you tracking certain things? Ask yourself honestly and sit with it. Because again, going back to Dale Carnegie, the carrot's greater than the stick. High expectations and a space to grow and a process are going to be demanding, and students will rise to the occasion. But if we constantly quantify how they're doing along the way, we might beat them down so that they can't self-actualize and get where we want them to go. Okay, that's really, really important. So change up things. Ask questions like, how many uses can you come up with this versus when was this created? All right, off my pedestal, back to the screen share. Let's keep going. Hopefully you're having a great time. Friends, we're going to move on to section 2 now. So section 1 was really about this headspace, right? Taking this strength-based approach. How can we shift our perspective so that we can develop strengths and not focus? Again, my visual people, it's not about bringing this up. Okay, it's about bringing this up. Dr. Joseph Renzulli once said this, and I love this quote. Holy ravioli, do I love this quote. If you want to write anything down today, maybe this is one sentence worth writing. No one cares about Einstein's ability to paint or Picasso's ability to do complex math. No one cares about Einstein's ability to paint or Picasso's ability to do complex math. So why are we so obsessed with grading people at how well they do at everything? It's silly when you say it like that. We want people who are exceptionally good at one thing. Okay, think back to the last 3 years. There was this guy that wrote a book about the Spanish flu. No one really probably thought that was like the foremost important book ever written. And then all of a sudden COVID happens and we can't get enough of this guy, right? Take someone like, Dr. Fauci. Okay, we want experts as a society, but we breed kind of mediocrity and tell people to go sort of develop your expertise outside the classroom. Can we change that? Can we allow students to develop their strengths and talents in the classroom? That's the headspace. Okay, if you're with me, let's go on. We're going to go on to part 2 now. I had to get all dramatic and emotional on you again. I told you it'd be an emotional one. Okay, so we're going to talk more nuts and bolts now. We're going to be starting with executive function. So again, I'm not saying let's go, run off into the woods and start a commune. I think that there's merit to being able to do things, to produce, and all of this, certainly. I would not be here if I did not show up. I had a system that reminded me to show up. So you guys did that too. So, we have to be able to do these things. Surely I have to pay bills, all that stuff. So I think it's really important that we help our students understand these things at a young age. So tip 5 is understanding executive function skills. Why did I have to wait until I was in graduate school to understand that my intelligence is not my doing? Can we help our students understand executive function skills at an early age so they can make the same decision? I felt stupid most of my life. And it wasn't until I went to graduate school in education and psychology that I was like, oh, holy cow, there's this prefrontal cortex thing, and that's different from like all this other stuff. And I'm actually maybe not as stupid as I thought. Right? A lot of people think that way. So let's address it. Even using the word stupid, people are like, hey, you shouldn't have said stupid during your presentation. A lot of people have that self-talk track. I'm going to bring it up. So can we help our students understand that there are doing skills and then there are knowing skills and that they're very different? And can we remember that as teachers? They might be really smart. They might appear lazy, but it might be the executive function stuff. So let's bring awareness to them and let's bring that awareness to ourselves. Okay. We need to understand the neurology. It wouldn't be a talk at a conference if I didn't show you a picture of a brain, right? Come on. Gotta show you a picture. It makes me look smart. It's my ethos, people. Okay. This is all about understanding the order in which our brains develop. Does anyone know? Write this in the chat if you know. Does anyone know when this prefrontal cortex develops? So let's say it's finished developing. And I'll be even more impressed if you know when that is for neurodivergent, twice exceptional individuals. 25, awesome. Other guesses, mid-20s, 26 plus. It's the last, that's right. So we know our brains develop kind of back to front, right? We have the sort of like reptilian, mammalian, and then human, Homo sapien brain. The front brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for all the executive functions, is the last to develop. And with neurodivergent individuals, so ADHD, autism, etc., it can be 27 and even up, 27 and up. That makes us crazy. Why aren't you doing these things, right? The definition of insanity is when you ask, you try the same thing and get different and expect different results. If we're just constantly barraging our kids, do this, do this, do this, you're not doing it, you're not doing it, you're not doing it. That's on us. We need to help our kids understand executive function systems, understand executive function skills, right? And if anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, I should have introduced that. I'm sorry. Executive function, think of this as the sort of air traffic control. These are the 12-ish skill areas that we consider really important skill domains to do. So if you think like executive, like a CEO, these are the doing parts. So your working memory, response inhibition, right? Impulse control. I'm not going to eat this marshmallow now so I can have 2 later, or I just had a random idea. I'm going to write it down rather than take action on it. I'm going to prioritize this as more important and urgent, right? These are all the executive function skills. We often don't teach our kids these, but we expect them to know them. So let's change that, right? Let's help them develop routines. Well, they don't yet have this, right? They don't yet have this part of their brain developed. Let's help build scaffolds. And that can be done at a really high level. Look, our kids are smart, okay? They're really smart. And if we can help them develop systems, that's going to be way cooler. I'm going to talk about more than that in a minute. Is it over yet? Not yet. By the way, can someone confirm this with me? I just looked at the schedule while you guys were doing the brick exercise, and it says I have way more time than I thought, which is fantastic. It says I have 90 minutes, and I thought I only had 60. So before, I'm kind of in that, like, I need to know fork in the road. Does anyone know? Is that confirmed? It says 60 minutes. Okay, thanks for letting me know. Holy ravioli, I was hoping it was 90. On the schedule, 3:30. Shoot. Okay. All right. I better wrap up. Okay. Got excited. I had the schedule from early days when we were first corresponding, and it said till later. Anyway. Okay. I'm going to hurry up then. We may skip an exercise. Thanks for letting me know, folks. You guys are great. Okay. So next bit here, and I'm just going to actually show you a quick video of what this can look like. I'm going to update my screen share settings so this works well. How can we help our kids? How can we help our kids build systems, right? Bringing awareness. They're smart. Bringing awareness. Instead of just saying, hey, so-and-so, you're not writing your homework down. What does writing homework down even consist of? Well, if we help them understand, we can help them see that, okay, there's really 3 parts. You have to quick capture, you have to prioritize, and then you have to take action on the homework, right? There's 3 buckets: capture, prioritize, act. Well, I have my students build their own systems because I think that's way cooler. This is a video. It might be kind of cringy. I haven't seen this in a while, but this is my reaction to what my like 10-year-olds did. Check this out. See if it works. Let me full screen it too. Just got out of class and I have to share this. My Young and Thriving Middle School Edition course. So is that quality okay? It's not the best, but is it working for you okay? Hopefully, yes. Elementary school students who are getting ready to go into middle school have just been working on creating their task management systems, and I have to brag about this. My jaw has been on the floor. Here's a young student who's put together a visual flow for work, deciding if something's manageable, should he defer it, should he make it happen, break it up, is it a good idea, bad idea? I mean, this is below. By the way, that's a dyslexic student who never writes. So he's been asked for years to write down in his task manager, but he likes to code. I was like, why don't you make an algorithm, a visual algorithm of how you keep track of your homework? Okay, here's a student who made a spreadsheet. I'm going to skip around because we don't have a lot of time. So I just wanted to share that with you. I hope that that being able to see that, empowering our students and gamifying this experience is a fantastic way. Instead of just saying you need to be able to do this, etc., can we move ahead and have them build something at a higher level because they deserve it and they're going to enjoy it more, right? I could go on, but I don't have a lot of time. I was so excited thinking I had 90 minutes. Okay, number 7, a big thing that teachers want to say a lot, and the thing that administrators want to tell teachers to do a lot is get kids to write. Seems really tough. A lot of our kids are dyslexic and might have different difficulties, dexterity challenges and so forth. Yeah, that's all true. Can we differentiate it like we've been talking about all day? But can we make it relevant? I asked you this earlier. What do you remember from when you were in school? I remember debates. I remember making things. I remember taking a stand. I remember arguing a thesis. I don't remember most other things. Okay. What can we do? What are kids already doing that they care about? And how can we get them to take a stand on it? They're probably on Reddit. They're probably getting into debates online. They're probably on Twitch and doing these other things, on YouTube comments, right? Can we lean into that? Can we show them how to put together an argument and then have them write about what they care about? Can they write about a business plan or a dream vacation, something that's relevant, or take a stand on why Apple's better than Android? I bet I just upset some of you and you want to write back. It's my goal. So can we help them do that? Okay. If the writing is fun, it will be relevant and they will make strides because then they care and you can coach them. I coached debate for over 10 years. And I can tell you that when kids come back to me from college, They say that the leaps and bounds they made in writing were not in my history class, were not in my other classes. Sometimes they weren't even in my English class. They were in my debate class. They learned how to qualify, how to rebut a claim, a warrant, and an impact. All of these elements, right? They roadmap. It's beautiful because they cared about it, and because they're sweating and they're nervous and they're excited, and it's real time. I'm going to be on the stump. I have to defend my point. It's go time. Okay. Let's get them to write more doing what they love. There was an exercise here. I got to skip it. I'm sorry. But you can see an example, right? I was going to have you tell me the favorite meal you've had in a while and give me a claim, a warrant, and an impact. What are you arguing? How do we know it's true? Why it matters? If I ask this question to most kids, I had pizza the other day. Okay. Give me some logos, pathos, ethos. Make me care about it, right? There's so much opportunity to get kids talking about what they're passionate about and sewing in the things that we want them to do. Okay, last phase here. I'm going to rush through it. I apologize if you're already tired. I'm going quick. Let's go, everyone. This is a sprint now. Last part here is the safe space. Okay, and this is really important. I want to go quickly so I can answer any questions you have at the end. So if you have any questions, almost there. I think one of the most important actionable things I'm going to give you is, and I'm going to give you real tips. You can take a screenshot of this if it's helpful for you. I certainly don't pretend to have all the answers, but I have things that have worked for me for a long time. Having routines. Okay, be a rock. Kids' lives are difficult and can be unstable. Don't be rigid, but be a rock. Don't be rigid where you don't flex when they're having a bad day, but be predictable and consistent because they know what they're going to expect. I love routines in my class. I used to joke about it because I'd walk out of my class and it would run. Okay, because the kids knew what to do. You get here, you do this, and you do that, and we work on it, and they own it. They care about it. Okay, we're modeling big thinking. We're doing things that are relevant. We're getting ready for something that's authentic. So here are some of the ones that I really like. Again, if you want to take a screenshot, you're totally welcome to. There's going to be a recording of this too. But I love to start class with a focus question. Come in. You know what to do. It's going to be on the screen, on the board, if you're in person. And it's going to help make that code switch. Maybe you just came from X and you're going to Y. Number two, starting units and ending units, KWLs, right? What do they know? Where are we going to go? What do you want them to do at the end? And did they do it? It's a really fun way rather than having a quiz. Can we do that? 3, Socratic seminars. Can we get them to delve deeply into a text? I talk to a lot of friends who are professors and they feel like kids aren't doing this in college. They're not ready for it. So can we help them go the distance and start getting that experience early? We have Socratic seminars with our 7-year-olds here at Young Scholars Academy. Get them to go line by line and refute an author's intention by choosing a certain word. I mean, it's awesome. It's awesome. They can do it. We just have to help them. Having debates, and then also feedback circles. We do feedback sandwiches, right? Student presents. What went well? What's an area for improvement? What went well? Feedback sandwich. Can we sit in the space where we can support one another, take ownership of our work, and collaborate, be the rising tide? And also getting feedback. Right? A lot of our students, that's really difficult. Can we help them sit in that space where you get to listen, you take it, and you decide if you want to do anything about it or not? These are adulting skills. So these are a couple things I like. If you want to take a quick screenshot, I'll give you a second to do that if you haven't done so. Or you can watch me and rewind on the replay. Why would you want to do that? You just spent an hour with me. Geez. Okay. Another important thing here is, again, self-actualizing. Right? Like, this is our lofty goal. We want to help our students climb. Turns out Maslow never actually built a hierarchy like this, right? But they're not levels in video games. We want to help our students make their way up, right? We want to help our students to reach the space of self-actualization. And I think it's important that they feel safe in our place so they can do deep learning, so that they can build confidence and get more of an idea of what they want to do. And finally, going back to our good friend, Joe Renzulli, who I had the absolute pleasure of interviewing previously, and I'm supposed to do again very soon, which I am thrilled about, is the enrichment triad model. Okay, if you want to take something that you can really apply on Monday kind of thing, how can you start conceptualizing your lessons and your modules so that you're going through these 3 phases? You know, number 1, exploratory. Let's get the kids enrichment that they're exposed to, get them, you know, exploring different topics and disciplines. Number 2, now can we design more development of the kind of deeper thinking? Can we start to get the critical thinking and, you know, processes where we're kind of learning to learn, right? Okay, now I want to go deeper into this in a group setting. I'm going to have to research this and I should do it this way, etc. So type 1 is exploring. Type 2 is kind of delving, and type 3 is really owning. Okay, this is where we get into that individual, real, authentic problem solving, right? Self-directed learning, where the students are doing something that really matters, not taking a test, but writing a blog, making a podcast, building a website that's designed to solve, climate change awareness problems, whatever it might be. Doing something that really matters so they can be like a first-hand inquirer and producer. Okay, the goal we want here, the big goal, get them hooked on learning and teach them how along the way. The content doesn't matter. The goal is the learning. I'm sorry if I offended you. If someone's keeping tally marks, I hope it's not too high on how many times I've said something that upset you. But the goal is to help our students be lifelong learners. And that's through learning the process of learning, which I think Renzulli gives us the perfect framework of the enrichment triad: explore, develop skills, delve deeply into authenticity. Okay. And this is why I founded Young Scholars Academy. That's another story for another time, but we need more enrichment learning and all of that brilliant stuff. Number 9, social emotional stuff here. I want to talk quickly. I'm going to whip through 9 and 10. Number 9 is that a lot of our students need facilitation. Okay. They are incredibly bright. They're asynchronous. Socializing can be hard. You take a bright 10-year-old. I have a student who's 10. She has a 173 IQ. Okay, she cannot talk to like-minded peers because they don't have the same interest. She built a claw machine in our engineering class last week. Okay, she hangs out with kids her age. They don't have the same interests. She hangs out with adults, and some can be patient, but for the most part, it's harder to talk to a 10-year-old sometimes, right? So our students need one another. They need mentors who get them, and they need peers who are also asynchronous, right? That's really, really important. Socializing happens when our students are in a space where they can have one another, where they can be together, and where there's some level of facilitation. So it's not like awkward, open, go play with so-and-so. That's really hard if you're autistic and you maybe struggle with cues and connecting and knowing what's appropriate and what's not, etc. That's rather amorphous and can be incredibly overwhelming. Instead, why don't we try to facilitate? Why don't we try assigned roles? Hey, we're going to do a group thing. Who wants to help with this? Who wants to help with that? Here are the different jobs we need to do. Okay, that can be a lot easier. And one thing I want to say, I want to beg you, if we have students who are 2E who are in socializing classes, that's deficit-based. Remember the big focus for today? Strength-based, not deficit. So instead of hey, let's go to the social skills class so you can fix your problems because you're autistic. No. Throw that out. That's harmful. What's the fundamental assumption? I have to take this class because I'm broken. Doesn't work. That does not work. Instead, let's do something they like. How about Dungeons and Dragons? Wait, we have to go on an amazing quest. There's a serious problem in this dungeon, but it's not your turn. Can we hold on to that thought for 1 second because so-and-so needs to solve it, and then we're going to make sure that they do the same for you. I care. I'm interested. I'll try, even though I'm really dysregulated. Let's learn some strategies along the way. Cool. That's great. That's passionate, that's strength-based, that's interest-focused. Hopefully you see the difference. Okay, lastly, research here. The research is really clear on this point, number 9. Is socializing is easy when people facilitate and then our students need one another. These are all the benefits. I'm going to move on, but they experience more acceptance, more belonging, more patience, and more empathy when neurodivergent students and asynchronous students are with their peers. Number 10, we're there, baby. Number 10, the power of empowerment, okay? Humans need to feel good, and it's our job to empower them so that they do. We need to lift them up, not bring them down. Individually, as individuals, we need to be consistent advocates that help our students develop their strengths, develop their talents, and learn how to get those things on their own. Can they be agents for their own pathway? Can they carve out the unconventional journey that they are on? And can we help them model it and transition it so that they can do it themselves? We need to be their advocates until they can be their own advocates. And that may take a heck of a long time, and you have to be okay with that, okay? We often say generic stuff like, we need leaders, but I don't know that we're always giving children the chance to lead, okay? Instead, we need to really teach our students how to recognize their strengths, and more importantly, how to tap into the strengths of others. Isn't that not what a leader is? I have 13 teachers who work at my school and a team of 3 admin. What do I do professionally? I leverage people's strengths so that they can do their best job. That's my whole job. 13 teachers, 3 admin. My whole thing is to figure out how are they showing up in the world at their absolute best, and how can I get them doing more of that for other people. We need to teach our students how to do that too. Okay, wrapping up here. I'm looking at the time. I know you are too. You guys are excellent. I appreciate you. Oh, finally, covered a lot today. I know it was a lot. I want to give you a second for questions. We talked about who our 2E students are. We talked about the mindset. We need to make that strength-based transformation. We need to help our students understand executive functions and let go of the fact that they might be smart and lazy. We need to become differentiation gurus and help them understand their own brains and the way in which they do the content, process, product, and the environment. And we need to make sure that we create a safe space where we are a rock, where they have a consistent, safe environment, because the world around them is changing. It's scary. They feel big feelings. They have high intelligence. And that is difficult when you're 7 years old and you understand that global warming is a thing. We need to hold space for our kids so that they can come together and thrive. I hope that you go forth. You feel strong about your strengths. Redundant. I hope that you reflect on your strengths and look at the strengths of others around you. And I hope that you let go of the concept that we need to help everyone be good at everything, because that's outdated. We're not getting ready for factory jobs anymore. We want specialists. We want people who can develop their strengths and be unique thought leaders. And that's our job to model, to do, and to cultivate and curate. So go forth, my friends. You are amazing. I appreciate you. Have the best day. Be well and keep thriving. Thanks, everyone.